Welcome to the People Chronicles. I'm Jackie Hoffman. The People Chronicles gives you a chance and a platform to tell your story no matter who you are or what you do. And we are joined today by Dr. Timothy Ring. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you're going to tell us a little bit about your adventures. That's what I like to call them, and some great stories. And we're going to start from, well, we could start from high school or college graduation or when you moved to Berks County. But either way, we start out with the same question for everyone. And that is, what would you like our listeners and viewers to learn from your personal story today?
Well, I actually have a lot of adventures. The most recent adventures that I've had, I do trauma, disaster mental health. So as a consequence, I get called to various places around the world whenever something terrible happens. The first place that I went to was at Ground Zero in 2001 in October after the towers went down. I worked there for 2.5 weeks with the American Red Cross in the digging area. And that was sort of an interesting place to get your feet wet when you're doing disaster mental health. I worked with some of the best psychologists in the world, actually. And it was a life-changing event. So since then, I've been to the tsunami in Thailand. I went to a cyclone in Burma that had killed 150,000 people. I was a supervisor at Katrina and Hurricane Rita. I went to the earthquake in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince twice, once right after the earthquake and the second time for the cholera epidemic. And most recently, I just came back from the Philippines for Typhoon Haiyan, or as the locals called it, Typhoon Yolanda. And actually, when we got there, we landed in a typhoon.
Wow.
Which was an adventure, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Now, was this something that you had always planned when you looked down the road? You know, upon studying, did you know that this is something that maybe you would look into eventually, or were you just kind of in an office thinking, this is where I'm going to be, this is where I'm going to stay? How do you get to where, you know, you are right now at this point in your life and all the different traveling that you've done and helped so many people around the world?
Well, I would like to say that there was some kind of pivotal event that brought me to these crossroads. But I was born and raised in New York City, and I used to actually play where the World Trade Center was. It used to be just roving fields prior to the development of Lower Manhattan as a financial district. And when the towers went down, I have a reverence for that area, and I obviously volunteered. They did tell me we're only looking for surgeons and emergency room docs. We don't need psychologists. And I said, well, you know, here's my name and number in case you need me. Call me. I do have a specialty in treating trauma. 2 weeks later, they called me and said, we need you. And so I went up there and was brought into the digging area. When they opened the gates that were canvas covered, I saw a landscape that took my breath away. I said to myself, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get through this. And it was the strength of my colleagues. I just looked at them, and they had the same expressions on their face. So I said, well, together we could probably get through this. So that was the groundbreaking event. And having got through that experience, I had the 4 to midnight shift at the pit and the digging area. And our responsibilities were to kind of check out the firefighters as they were taking out body parts and bodies to make sure that they had the emotional stability to continue. Because the last thing that anyone wanted was another death or injury at the pit. So we were out there in the digging area with the sights and the sounds and the smells and everything. So getting through that experience, and was incredibly rewarding. I saw such a strength in human spirit. It was amazing. I never thought I could get through something like that. When I came back, it really puts life into focus.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't imagine how it must make you feel at the end of the day or at the end of your shift when you're, headed out and you've done everything that you needed to do. How does it make you feel knowing that you're from New York? This is, very near and dear to you, people you don't know, and you have all of your own emotion that you have to deal with.
Well, it's I felt very proud to be, first of all, I felt very proud to be selected to be part of this team. I felt very humbled to be there because I was working with some of the best psychologists in the world, and I learned an awful lot as a psychologist, but I learned more as a man. To see people that have been confronted with such adversity and such horror, and to still get up in the morning and do what they had to do for 14, 15, 16 hours a day, digging for their brothers and their sisters, really put things in perspective for me. Notwithstanding, I had my demons, and to get to sleep at night when I was there was very difficult, because I was staying in a hotel in uptown Manhattan where I was registered by number because they were fearful of other terrorist attacks. And, I'd walk into this elegant hotel and with a hard hat and breathing apparatus at 1 o'clock in the morning after taking the subway from downtown. And it was such a contrast in worlds. I'd look at the bar and disco in the lobby, and people were going on with regular life, and I had just been out of hell. I had just really experienced death and decay, and so to put all of that in perspective at night was difficult, and actually took me 4 or 5, 6 months to put into perspective. But once I did, I said, you know what, I really need to do this again.
Right. So you said that you had the support of your team, obviously, and, the work of other doctors and seeing how they handled things. And then you knew that this wasn't it for you. You had to go somewhere else. You had to help more people. You had to change more lives. And you were given this great opportunity to help other people. So that's like a show in itself. You could really talk about New York. I mean, you could go on for days about the different stories, I'm sure.
Well, I would try to sleep for a couple of hours, and then I would walk to Central Park, and I would go to the playground and just watch children play, because that's where I was trying to find my balance. I shed a lot of tears there because of all the tragedies and the stories that I was hearing. But I managed to find adequate balance. I called home a lot to friends and family. But all in all, it contributed immensely to me as a person. And again, it was such an honor and a privilege to be able to do that and to be able to give of myself. I got back exponentially so much more from what I was able to accomplish. I often hear, you're going halfway around the world to a tsunami that killed hundreds of thousands of people. What do you really expect to accomplish? How could you change the world doing something like that? Oh, I don't expect to change the world. I'm a drop in the bucket. When I was just recently in the Philippines, I probably treated 250 or 300 people in the course of the 2 weeks that I was there, which is a lot of people to see as a psychologist. Any psychologist would tell you to see 250 people in 10 days or 2 weeks is a lot.
And when you came in here today, we said, do you remember so-and-so?
Right.
All these people that you come across in your lifetime, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's a drop in the bucket. And what I always say is, well, it's just a drop in the bucket was what people would say to me. I said, well, you know what if my drop wasn't there? what if every drop wasn't there? The bucket would be empty. So, that's why I'm compelled to go. My 250 people are a little bit better today because of, what I was able to do with them and give them a little bit of hope about their lives. And so if there, were 100 more of me, then there's 25,000 people.
Absolutely. If we could clone Dr. Ring, this world would be a much better place.
Not cloning me.
People like you. We get that.
Not cloning me, but cloning, what it is that I do.
Right.
Sometimes it's just, I just see people and I hug them and say, you're going to be okay. You're an incredibly strong person to get through a storm with winds that are 230 miles an hour. That the winds blew so strong that there wasn't even rain. It was a white mist that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. The sound of the wind was like 1,000 babies crying, to where people were just blocking their ears from both the sound and the pressure from the storm. To survive something like that is phenomenal. I mean, I'm in awe of people like that. When I was in Thailand, I had medical students as my translators, and they said, Dr. Tim, we need for you to talk to this man. And I said, well, okay, what's going on with him? Well, he's a fisherman, and he was out fishing the morning of the wave. And when he came back, he discovered that his 6 children and his wife had perished in the wave. And now I'm walking to talk to him with 2 translators, and they're eager to have me, quote unquote, fix this man. And I'm getting queasy in my stomach just thinking, what in the world am I going to say to him? How could you say something to someone and make that all better? Or even make a little bit of his day brighter? So I walk up, and there's this man sitting in a chair talking to someone else. He's smoking a cigarette, and I said hello to him, and very politely he said hello to me in Thai. And I said to him, I'm very sorry for your loss. And he shook his head, and he smiled. And I said, I have to ask you this. Like, how is it that you get up in the morning and breathe? Because I am just I'm so much in awe of your capacity just to get up in the morning. And then he really smiled, and he looked at me, and he pointed off to the side, and he said, that's why I get up. That's my reason for getting up. And I looked over, and there was a 9-year-old boy playing in the sand. It was his surviving son, who was on a sleepover at a friend's house. And that's why he survived. He said, that's my reason for living.
Dr. Ring, we're going to hear more stories, and we're going to find out what it is that really makes your clock continue to tick, and more about your last trip to the Philippines when we come back. We're going to take a short break on the People Chronicles.